like to introduce my friend Michael Krulik. He is the video product evangelist for Avid, which should be a pretty easy job because you just go around telling everybody how great Avid is, and it's pretty great. So he's going to tell us about all the latest updates to Media Composer.
Composer, thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you for coming on a Saturday and joining in. My name is Michael Krulik. I'm here from Avid. We have an office here in Burbank. We are headquartered in Burlington, Massachusetts. But I don't know if you all know, Media Composer just celebrated 30 years. So 30 years of technology. Thank you. I won't take credit. I've been with Avid for 17 years, so part of that. But definitely seen a lot evolved. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that as well through technology, be it compression rates, color correction, audio tools, and things like that. But one of the biggest things I want to point out here, if you haven't heard, we actually reimagined or redesigned the UI of Avid Media Composer. We wanted to make it more inviting for new people. There's a whole new generation of editors out there that we want to be able to bring in and have them, be able to easily use Media Composer. But we also didn't want to deviate from what current or seasoned Media Composer editors are able to do. So you can still customize, you can still map your keys. A lot of control. We want to thank the Orville, the team there, for giving us some footage to be able to use in our demonstration here.
What happened to your leg?
He amputated it while I was sleeping.
So very funny show. Definitely check it out. But if you take a look, if you're familiar with Avid Media Composer, you might see some things that, it looks kind of familiar. I'm working off of a laptop. The nice thing is, you can work off of a laptop. You can work off of a desktop. You can have a single monitor, two monitors. You customize the way you want to work and how you have your interface. And the software is only about $23, $24 a month right now. So there is a subscription that you can get there, or for $1,300 you can buy the software outright and keep it for as long as you want. So again, there are options there. But just looking at the UI, the first thing I want to point out, and then we'll get into some color things, is on the right side we have what's called our task-oriented workspaces. So the nice thing here, just like other applications, if you want to go into color, you click color. If you want to go to effects, if you want to go to audio. So we're giving quick access to all of these sort of rooms or tools that you can go into. Very easy, very nice. You can customize, and when you customize, you're saving a whole new set down the right side. But the seasoned Media Composer editor may say, well, I have that mapped to a key. I don't need that. So if I right-click on the workspace area, I can say hide, which means I now have some real estate. It's cleaned up. I have that mapped. I don't need that. But you do have a pull down in the upper corner that'll also let you choose your workspaces. Again, it's a little modern, a little cleaner. You can bring that workspace bar back. But you'll also notice as I move through my bins and windows, they're locked. We've locked the panels. And this was something that Media Composer editors said they don't like their bins and windows on top of one another. You're constantly moving things out of the way. So we built in this new paneled UI, which again gives you the control to be able to lock your bins, lock your timeline. Again, it's nice and clean because I am working off of a laptop, but there are editors that don't mind having stuff on top of one another or being able to decide on the type of layout that they would like. So I could take a bin and actually pull it out and float it. So you can float your bins and windows, or I can take that and put it back into my bin container. You'll also see that we've tabbed the bins. So you actually have, some nice control, again, a nice clean look. And we now have the project sidebar. The sidebar is just your list of bins that you can open up. When you double click, it'll open up the bin inside of the tabbed bin container. Now, again, we talk about real estate and the bin container here. The bin container, again, containing all of your bins. Let's say I double click and bring up this bin right here also. There's a lot of clips in there. But if I pull this bin container out, that can float. So again, if you're looking at real estate and trying to move things around, if I have a 2-monitor system, normally people have the bin monitor on the left and the edit monitor on the right. But now with this new clean design, I can take the bin container and I can create a nice visual, clean display with my bins. Every time I move, you see the little green bars? That's my drop zone. Where do I want to drop that bin? So now I'm creating a bin. The bins and the visual representation could also be, your bin container of sound effects or scripts if you're working with script sync and scripting. So you can see I have a nice, left, right, vertical, horizontal bin container that could be on the complete left side of the display. Again, cleaning up that view. And if I want to take my bin container and put it back into my layout, I grab the vertical title here, and you see the green drop zone. When I move it, that light area is where it's going to drop. I let go, and my bin container is now there. You'll also notice when you're using the software, it's more responsive. We got this really great control. It's very fluid.
Scanners at maximum.
When you are moving through it. Some other things just to point out. The timeline, you may notice if you've used Media Composer, is we had a set of smart tools down the left side here. Editor said that again took up real estate. So smart tools are now mapped here. You can actually put them on a key. And you can decide what smart tools you want to have active, or you can hold down a modifier with Option and select through those. You also may know, if you're a seasoned Media Composer editor, the lift person is back. It went away for a little bit. There was a redesign, and then everyone said, bring back the lift man. So the lift person's back, so it actually will lift the clip in the timeline, and you have your scissors, which will, of course, cut and ripple your sequence. So again, we want to keep this the way editors work. There are some nice things that we have added over the years. Something that I want to point out for turnovers, for things that for audio, for VFX. If I go into my timeline and I select, let's say I have some colored clips, like maybe the blue and this color green right here, that maybe I want to send just that sequence information for color or for VFX or for sound. If I go to segment mode and select those colors right here, then I right click, we get select options. And I'm going to say, let's select everything with the same source clip color. But now I can say create a sequence based on that selection. I don't know how many people have a sequence and they're like, I just want certain clips to be sent over. I just want these lists for a turnover. So I can create a new sequence based on that selection. We'll put that in the rough bin right there. And now when I double click, it's just those selects in the exact placement. That can be an edit list. That can be an AAF file to take into other applications. So a quick and easy way to go in and make some selections. We'll go back to that original clip right here. I also want to point out something we have introduced called the inspector tool. And the inspector tool is metadata. Metadata like, color, format, frame rate. And this is contextual in the sense that when I select a clip in my bin, it's showing me the metadata for that clip. If I select the source or the sequence, it's giving me sequence information right there. And again, going back to the paneled UI, I could take that panel, drop that and lock it into my UI right here, and simply select clips, data, information, and it's giving me that. So if I'm on a bin that has a lot of information, I don't have to keep sliding back and forth through all of that to take a look at any sort of metadata. You can actually keep that nice and clean, and whenever I select here, it's giving me all of that information. Frame rate, format, anything like that. Also, if you hadn't heard recently, we can go up to 16K projects. So if you are doing digital signage, or if you do need to deliver a 16K, or when cameras are shooting 16K, we're basically future-proofing with that. And you can also do custom formats as well. So you're not locked into these certain formats. If you're creating a visual for a Snapchat window or for mobile devices, you don't have to necessarily do just HD, 2K, 4K. We offer a whole set of options for there as you're creating. Some other things to point out when we were looking at color and HDR. If I go to create a project, or let me go ahead and go into my settings, and currently I'm at YCBCR 709. If I open up the color space, you'll see I can actually create in all of these different color spaces. HLG, SMPTE 2084, and we just introduced the Academy Color Encoding System. Yay! A little bit of applause, thank you. So if I say I want to take this project from creating a project and working in ACES, when I select it, you'll see that the color space will change to ACES version 1.1. And here are your output color spaces. So the idea is I can actually work in a fully ACES environment with Avid Media Composer from start to delivery. I could export different formats. I can export IMF packages. I can link to EXR media, soon to be creating EXR media out of Media Composer. And because we are working in such a high color space, you'll also notice, again, all I did was I just changed this format right here, the color space. You'll notice a new color for your video quality. I don't know, I can't show all the way, go all the way down, but it actually is blue. Normally it's half yellow, half green, or green. Blue is full 32-bit float. So since I switched to an ACES color space, it automatically switched me to a full 32-bit float environment. If I go ahead and change that back, go to settings, I'll turn off ACES. You'll also notice that the color shifted just a little bit in the displays there. And now I could go back to my draft quality, half yellow, half green, full quality, but we can do full 32-bit float. Also, adapting to other formats of media. Typically, Avid always worked OP Atom, so it was splitting the audio and video. Well, now we can go in and create and work with OP1A media. So you can now mix down OP1A. You can link to OP1A media, and you can create OP1A media as well, and even mix it in the same environment. It actually is going to put it into a different folder in your Avid Media file folder. So there is a separation there, but we can manage it, we're looking at it, and we can work with that as well. All right, let's take a look at some media. I'm going to go ahead and link to some media here. I'm going to link to using the Avid's source browser. Let's see, I have on my desktop. I have some, here it is, some media from IBC. So I'm going to link to this. Now, the media, the source browser lets you link to digital assets just like other NLEs out there. We're linking to all the different camera formats. Then depending on your computer, you can work 2K, 4K, if you have the horsepower. But we do have proxies that you can set up to actually be able to do real-time transcodes of that media to let you work, and then you can switch the proxy off to do your exporting. But I'm going to go ahead and link to this HDR clip right here. Say link. You'll see it actually populated it in my bin right here. I double-click, and there it is. So currently, you can see it is kind of stuttering a little bit. I am working off of a laptop with a very large file right here. But if I go into my settings and under format, let's say I want to go up to a 2K or UHD project. I've just switched that to UHD. What that turns on is the proxy function. So I could say, even though I'm in a UHD project, switch it to a quarter quality, which takes it to 1920 by 1080. Or if I'm still having issues playing it back, switch it to 1/16. It's 960 by 540, but it'll let me edit, most likely, depending on the CPU that I have, make my decisions, add my effects, then switch it off and do my export or whatever I need to work there. So some really nice control. Now what I do want to show you, because I did link to an HDR clip, you can see the quality here. If I right click, and I think you may know about this, I think I've shown it in other presentations as well, but we have had this evolve a little bit, is your source settings. So I can go to the source clip, and I have control of using frame flex to be able to reframe my clips. I can change playback rates. I can actually slip audio on the clip. But more importantly, what I want to show you is I linked to this clip, and it's showing me the color transforms that have been applied to that in the camera. We bring that data over. We can look at that, we can add to it, we can bring in LUTs if you're in Resolve and you create a look. We can open up those looks in Avid Media Composer by simply going to my color management settings. You'll see a couple of things right here. Insert color transformations automatically in the source settings upon linking. So you can turn that on or off, totally user definable. Use CDL values from ASC SOP and ASC SAT bin columns when available, but also automatic HDR conversions from SDR media. You can turn those on. And down here is where we can select a LUT that was created in another application and apply it to those lists, the list inside of Media Composer. So I currently have some transformations applied here. You'll also notice down here, I could go and look at user installed LUTs or generic LUTs. And it's going to give me all the different color adapters that I can apply in Avid Media Composer. If this was set up for ACES, we would be able to see, the list of ACES formats for the different cameras. And just to show you what this looks like without all of these, I can go in and let's just delete, and you'll notice how it starts changing the clip to its actual raw format. So it's pulling out that information. I could edit with that. There's the difference. Or I could say automatically apply, depending on your color space, automatically apply LUTs to make them match as well. All right. So once we go in and add those, you do have color information on there. If I go into a transcode of that clip, let me go to transcode. What I want to show you are our different formats, because DNX HD, of course, only went up to HD. So to go high res, we added DNX HR. All right. And then above that, we have DNX uncompressed. So we have uncompressed qualities that we can add to our footage. Let me go to my media settings. Media creation. And this is where you can actually choose between OP1A and OP Atom on media creation. And then going into all of my formats. So, any questions so far as I, step through this? Anything as far as color? So the question was, is it a background process if you are doing a proxy format? Actually, it is creating the transcode on the fly. So the nice thing about that is, you could go in and do a transcode of the media, which does create media. But if I do decide to change it to be a proxy, it's just anytime it's accessing the media, it's doing a real-time transcode of that visually for faster playback. You could still do a transcode of that as well, depending on what you need or depending on space. And if you are working with, high-res files, it's going to take up a lot of space, even if you're doing a transcode at DNX uncompressed. 8K, so the process or workflow with some heavy media. The first thing I would ask is what sort of storage you have for your media. Are you running it off of trying to run it off a Thunderbolt drive, or if you have, Nexus, of course, shared storage, if you're 10 gig connected or 1 gig connected, and also your CPU and what sort of power that has. And a lot of it, because you can go in and instantly switch your display to be 1/16, 1/4, or have it off, I tell people to just try it. If you do switch it to one of these and you are getting decent playback, you probably could be just fine. When you start stacking effects or stacking more clips on top, you may get a little chug, which may require some sort of rendering. But also, a lot of people just are in the habit of transcoding to a more robust, a better format for editorial, they may just go in and do a DNX HD version of the 8K or the 4K as well, and then link back. Correct. You could handle it horsepower provided, but again, I tell people, I don't know what you have. I don't know what's connected. Give it a try. One thing I do want to point out, an important thing with a lot of these workflows, especially for people who are either want to relink back to high-res media inside of Avid Media Composer, or if they're sending the information to Resolve for a color finish, work just like you had tape. There is a video that my colleague put online as far as workflows with linking back to high-res media. So the great thing to do is, just like in tape, if you remember when you were digitizing from tapes, you put a tape in the deck and it said, give it a tape name. So you had a reference as to where you were going back to. Where's that tape? What were you putting back in to recapture? You want to do the same thing now with digital files. So if you link to a clip, what you want to do is make sure you go back to your columns and add the column, or one column you can choose, is a disk label. So put a disk label on your clips, just referring to a card number or a folder, so that you always know where that media is, because when you transcode this, it'll embed that metadata into that clip. So it gives you that reference, so that when you do a relink back to that for high res, you can point back to that folder, it gives you that reference again, and it'll link back to high res. So the statement was, it seems like that the UI was developed relatively fast, but it's very it actually wasn't. I think it was 2 to 3 years of development that actually went into this with seasoned editors. So we didn't just the engineers weren't just like, okay, this is how you're going to work. I mean, we did talk to people who've never seen Media Composer before, and a lot of our current users to actually take a look at this. Honestly, when I first took a look at it, of course, I was a little, taken back and thought, okay, this is going to be interesting. But once I started moving through it and seeing it, it's just, a little bit of time, and you forget basically how the old software looked and worked. Whereas sometimes I go back to do some demonstrations, and I'm like, oh, now I have to reverse engineer my mind to go back to how it used to work. But again, the basics we wanted to keep the same. So, because so many people customize their keyboards, they customize their layouts, we wanted that to remain. So you still have that capability. Just visually, when you start doing things, it was a little put off. But just one point to make there, because again, we listened to the customers. The initial version did not have a project window, because we put everything in what's called this bin container. The bin container, if I just slide over here, that's because I'm zoomed in, you show the sidebar, you would see that there is basically a duplicate of my project. The project was mainly just a list of your bins. But because people's minds, when they were working with Media Composer, said, where's my project window? We said, well, it's renamed. It's now a bin container. We took that to heart and said, okay, we'll bring back the project window so that you have a project window, you close that up, and you're now viewing your bins. Another nice thing that we brought in, just to jump back to the bins here, you'll see that your bins may have a lot of data here. If I'm looking at this bin, you'll see that there's a lot of clips in there. And I could go ahead and scroll through this one to take a look at all of my media. But what we introduced, if I right-click, is called the new bin map. So if I say show bin map, it actually puts a little representation of my bin right here, where I can go in and use this as a way to move around my bin. It's sort of giving you like a Google map to your bin, so you can see that there are clips on the other side. So again, we're trying to create something new. Being able to go in and change the size of your frames by just moving the slider up here. Because if you go to photos, if you go to documents, everyone knows if you move the slider, it's going to change the size. But the seasoned Media Composer editor knows to change the frame, you hit what? Command L. Somebody new is going to be like, I just want to change the size of that. So again, we're trying to make it something that people will go, oh, I know how to use this. Again, I mean, a lot of developments, we're still developing more. There's a lot more coming out. A lot more as far as monitoring HDR through our I/O boxes. So be on the lookout for some new things along those lines. We know people want to be able to work high res. We know people want to be able to work in a single package and not have to move things around, and we're definitely moving in that direction. So high res, it's all built into the basic Media Composer software, about $34 a month. Not bad. If you do want to try Media Composer, if you haven't tried it before, we do offer a free version, Media Composer First. It doesn't have everything. It doesn't go higher than HD, but if you just want to try out the new UI, you can download Media Composer First. You can have it for as long as you want. You can just get an idea of how to navigate through the software. Or if you do want to try out the full version with all the HDR, with all the high res, you can download a 30-day free trial from our website. Do we have any plans for the title tool? Well, yes. Interesting you say that. We're working on tutorials for that because what happened is, again, I talked about Media Composer being 30 years old. The original title tool has been in there for 30 years, but we didn't have HD back then. So the original title tool didn't allow you to create titles above HD. So we had to bring in Marquee, we had to bring in New Blue, but we just added the Avid Titler Plus to the software, where if I go in and I select a clip, let me just go to this one right here, we'll just go into segment mode, and I hit the Avid Titler Plus, it gives me a little mini menu right here where I can go in and just start the Orville. If I double click, it actually lets me select that. I can go in and turn on and off the face color. I can turn off the shadow. If I go in to change the font, nice thing here is we actually give you a visual representation of what the font is. Let me go ahead and change that to that. If I want to change, the size, I could do it by typing in a value or actually even grabbing the handle here and changing the size. So this lets you work higher than HD. And the nice thing is it's an effect and it's going over your record window. So if you do have hardware and you're looking on a 4K monitor, you're seeing that in real time as you're building it. So you get a representation. I want to change the color, make that yellow. If I want to add a shape, you're doing a simple lower third. I'm actually doing my video, which I'm working on for you right here. So now just by going in and let's say to change the color of that, make that green, change the order, take off the drop shadow, make it transparent. And that is real time. So creating an effect, a nice place to stop and have him yelling, ah. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael.